Hello, and welcome to Chess Books 60, in which we take a light-hearted look at the oh-so-serious world of chess books. Today I want to look at a couple of books which are linked by a common theme. They are in fact the same book, but it's been updated. So we have to see what we're getting for our money when we're looking at it from a certain perspective of 20 years ago, and now a new one's come out. So this is the earlier edition. There are several editions of this book, and in a way that shows great self-confidence, I think, by the publishers, who are Robinson. Now, Robinson isn't a name like Batsford's or Everyman, which is striking a blow in the chess world. But for all of that, it is a nice book. This book was £10, and the new one, I bought it about a month ago, is nearly £20. So it has to be admitted, you have to ask yourself, well, what are we getting extra for our money? And the answer is we're getting another 20 games with a top level, very, very senior people in the chess world as annotators. They're writing the notes, the games you understand. Now let's just start from first principles. The first game is from 1834, and the last game is from 2010. So it's quite a wide sweep, isn't it? 100 and, well, if it was 200 years, it's about 175 years or something like that. So it starts off with 9 games from the Victorian era, and surprisingly, not a single game by Morphy. I really do find that surprising, but I wouldn't count that as a criticism. And then there are various games by Rubinstein, Capablanca, Marshall. Oh dear. There's the game Adams Torre, which I think is at best apocryphal. It probably didn't take place. It was designed to show a theme of weakness on the back rank and overloading and so forth. I'm a bit surprised they include that, because they must know of some doubt that the shadow of doubt has been cast over it. But for all of that, then we come right through to the 1950s, and the arrival of such dreadful players as Tal, Polgaevsky, and obviously the one and only Bobby Fischer. And for example, the game Fischer-Tal from Leipzig 1960, game 45 here, the whole game was theory, and I'm not certain that they didn't just decide, since it was a team event, that they were going to play that out for the sake of the spectators. Lots of games by Bobby Fischer. As we come up to date, a game by Tony Miles, Karpov, Kasparov, obviously. Nigel Short's inevitable game against Timman. And finally a game by Anand against Topalov, which brings us to 125 games. Now let's see what the new edition offers. For a start, it offers larger fonts because we have larger pages. I'm going to show you what it's like. It's double columned, and the quality of the paper is perhaps better. It's glue bound and sewn in the way the paperbacks are. But there's nothing wrong with that, is there? And the notes are to the later games by Michael Adams and Wesley So. And who's the other guy? I can't even remember. No, that's it. Mike Adams and Wesley So. So they do about 10 games each, I think. I haven't counted. Let's have a look. Perhaps I should have done. Yeah, I mean, I think so. basically, obviously, they've updated it. Most of the games from the earlier periods remain as they were originally. They give a little background to the players' careers, which I think is very useful, actually. Capablanca, see here. Tartakova, by contrast, was having an excellent tournament, undefeated and sharing the lead. This is at New York 1924. We can get a more important game. So there's about a 200-word introduction. Tartakova employs the Dutch, which is already seen him using to such devastating effect in game 18. Capablanca responds to straightforward development rather than getting embroiled in theoretical dispute in his opponent's territory. Tartakova certainly was one and remains so all his life as quite a wily old fox. And it is, and how Alekhine would have roared, it is a Dutch defence. But he mixes the Dutch with B6, which, as I know to my cost, is I don't think, it says black setup is quite reasonable. I'm not so sure it is. I'm not saying they're wrong, but reasonable for who and at what levels, and also how you should support it. I'm not sure. I mean, here's an example, for example, of move 18. I hope it's holding it still. That'll only showing you, but there we are. Move 18 there, down here. If you look at the depth of discussion, there's several variations being looked at, 3 or 4. And that's just on one move or one permutation, shall we say. Let's come forward. This is from Semming, 1926, between Rubinstein and the one and only Alexander Alekhine. Was one of the greatest players in history, it says of Alekhine. He held the World Championship from 1927 to 35, and from 37 until his death. Yes, he did. My goodness, what a horrible death it was. He ended up a drunk in a Yugoslav, presumably, hotel room. I dare say the war took it out of him, both in terms of fear and in terms of lack of direction. Again, if you look at the depth of discussion here with, again, Jona Nimzevich, look at this, all down here is discussion. I mean, that's on a pretty high level, isn't it, the depth? And it goes right through to the rise of Karpov, Kasparov, and obviously the retirement of Bobby Fischer, and then more up-to-date players such as Anand himself, who writes the introduction, and Michael Adams, who has written notes to some of the games. Says Michael Adams, born in 1971, has been a top British player for most of the past 20 years. That's quite an achievement, isn't it? At the close of the game, they do a summary of 3 points. I'll just read you some of this. It's always a risk playing an opening for the first time, even though you may memorize the variations. True understanding usually depends on practical experience. Yes, it does. If somehow something unexpected happens, you have to think for yourself, you may face difficulties. And that's just 1 point. He makes 3. These days, it's unusual to keep a novelty in reserve for as long as 10 years. That's an echo from the point of Frank Marshall springing the Marshall defense in the Lopez against Capablanca. When conducting a do or die attack on the king, there's often one last bastion that could be conquered for the attack to break through. The attacker's main aim is to bring enough pieces to bear on the critical points to ensure success. I might also add with that you have to be able to calculate the variations, not just spot the patterns. I'm not too bad on patterns, but I'm not very good in calculation, to say the least. Topolov, Kramnik, and Raikanzai, 2008. Again, richness of content here. Even the most advanced chess books wouldn't necessarily have anything deeper. You can bet your boots this has been checked and checked again. MVL, as it becomes known, Maxime Vachier-Lagrave versus Ding Liren. And it is a Caracan, advanced Caracan. Very interesting position has ensued. Unexpectedly, white voluntarily moves his king. So to move the late Wolfgang Heidenfeld would have richly approved of. He flicks his king from e1 to d2. Almost as if he was taunting black. Here we are, lessons from this game. One, being behind in development is one thing. If your pieces become blocked by your pawn structure, they will never emerge. It is much more serious issue. Giving up some material is good investment, and finding in sharp, unbalanced positions, every move counts. We can't argue with that, could you? Gives a little background to the world champion. He became world champion in, do you know? Can you remember? I wouldn't have done. 2013. And he's still world champion in 2022. So that's a long reign, really. And they show an Imzo-Indian. This is from the World Championship match in Chennai. Probably the Indians thought that if they could get a sponsor for the match and held it in India, it would be nicer for their local boy, who was Anand, of course. But I don't know that it was. I think he got very worried in front of his home crowd, some of whom were just shipped in. It's awful to think it, but I'm not sure even some of them were chess players. I think a local school just sort of gave them the day off or something. And they stood behind glass. Lessons from this game: develop your pieces quickly. Bishop pair can be a big asset. When you have a winning position, try to choose the most practical way to convert it into victory. In other words, be a little bit selective. Now, here's a game between played in Ho Chi Minh City. So that's Vietnam, I think, isn't it? And I've never heard of the two players. In fact, there's their names, and I will not even attempt to pronounce it. There they are. Look. See? Maybe you didn't see, but there they are. Nothing wrong with that, but on the other hand, it's nice perhaps to see that we haven't got to put up with Morphy versus the Duke of Brunswick again. Instead, be alert, as chess games can get sharp very quickly, it says. Yes, they can. Increasingly, I'm sure in later editions we'd see more computer input and also games with a faster time limit. Increasingly, fast games are very much part of the diet of all players. If you need to seize the right moment to become active in the opening, relaxing too early in a comfortable position can cause you to drift and lose accuracy. Double pawns are a long-term weakness, especially in the endgame. Yes, they are. This is a game from the Chinese team tournament, and here's our friend Ding Liren all over again, who was mentioned earlier. And once again, it's an Imzo-Indian. Jolly wise choice. I always think I like to play the Imzo-Indian. And here's a game between Magnus Carlsen and Wesley So. Who knows? One day these two guys might be contesting the World Championship. But for the moment, knight f3, d5, to d4, knight f6, 3, bishop f4. Magnus goes for the London system. well, he follows it up by his pawn is already on d4, pawn's already on d4 and d5, and he follows it up with c4. So quite frankly, it goes into a mainline Queen's Gambit, I would say. I'm such a cynic. But no, I think that's what it was. Once again, two gentlemen. I have no idea who they are. If you know, give yourself a clap. I'll bet your boots. It's an interesting game. They wouldn't have included it otherwise, would they? Paravian. Golyubov. No, that's not Golyubov. There's Anish Giri. I'll just read you what it says about him, a little bit of biog. He was born in 1994 in St. Petersburg, Russia. He's truly a citizen of the world, born to Russian and Nepalese parents. The family moved to Japan when Anish was young, and he now plays for the Netherlands. He speaks many languages and extremely active in social media, but is known for his caustic wit. He is extremely active. I just said that. Encyclopedic knowledge of both openings and endgame theory, technical skills polished by work, and some of the world's top trainers. He's been one of the world's top dozen players since 2014. That is not messing around, is it? So there we are. And the last game in the book is played by Noel Studer against Richard Rapport. It's a game from the German Bundesliga. It says Richard is a talented Hungarian grandmaster who is on the verge of breaking into the top 10 of the world. I'm not sure about that. His tactical prowess and his unorthodox, uncompromising approach to chess. This idiosyncratic style has its pitfalls, but a number of quite brilliant games. It's always exciting to watch him play. Well, that's nice to hear that. It says of Studer, he's a Swiss grandmaster who won his national championship in 2016. He's a very solid and stable player. Well, that's nice. So there you are. This is 145 games. It's a book of over 800 pages, 814. An index of players. I don't know, it's got an index of openings. Yes, it has. And it also talks about the authors. So you get plenty of background information. There it is. And this new one cost me, I bought mine in Waterstones and they gave me a couple of quid off. It's $18.99 in the UK, $29.99 in Canada, and in the US it's $24.99. So maybe 25 bucks. On the cover, we have a lady who may distantly recognize, Judith Polgar and Magnus Carlsen. Unfortunately, they have made the set a bit blurry, and quite frankly, it would make much better sense if they concentrated more on the board rather than the guys here and here, because, well, if you know who they are, you knew anyway, and if you don't know who they are, it just looks like maybe she's waiting to drive him home or something. I'm being unnecessarily critical, but for all of that, I think that's rather almost putting the chess set into second or third place. Well, it isn't in second or third place, is it? Not in our affections. This has been Chess Book Reviews 60. I'm James Pratt. If you want to get this book, I strongly recommend it. It isn't for beginners, but it is something which will stay with you and you can learn a lot from.